You may have noticed that so far we have been talking about applications that only have a single activity. Okay, although this works fine, that's wonderful, there's no problem with that, it's very minimalistic. That is not necessarily the overall feel when we are actually building complex applications. So now it's time for us to look at how to create a multiple activity based project. In this case, we're just going to create an extra screen so that we can move between those two screens. That way we can get an idea on how to go from screen A to screen B. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Still here in my activity life cycle here, obviously can create a different project. It doesn't matter. What we're going to be doing now is to showcase the other activity, or perhaps trying to get users from the first activity to a second activity. But for that, obviously, we need to create that second activity. To do that, we go to project, make this open there, and inside of our activity lifecycle package here, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say new, and I have all sort of things here. We've used the Java class, we've used the Android resource file. In this case, we're actually going to come down here to activity. And what we need actually is an empty activity as such. So there's all these other kind of activities, but we want the empty activity as we've been using it. Okay, so click there and voila. Now I'm going to name this activity. So I can name whatever I want. I can say main activity 2, which is not necessarily the best name, but I'm going to give it a more meaningful name. Okay, I'm going to call this show guess. Notice as we add that second activity name here, it also creates a layout for us, which makes sense because we want to make sure that our activity, the Java side of thing, also has the view, in this case, the layout, right? It makes sense. So it will go ahead and create the activity show guess XML, which goes hand in hand with our show guess Java. And you notice here, you can check, make sure that this is actually the launcher activity. In this case, it's not going to be the launcher activity, but if you wish to do so, we can tick there and it becomes a launcher activity. Meaning at this point, if we proceed, say finish, this launcher activity, meaning show guess, it's now going to be registered in the manifest as a launcher activity. So the main activity no longer will be the launcher. So we don't want that. And I'm going to go ahead and say finish. It takes a few moments here and we should be able to see our new activity. Okay. In fact, you can see the layout, or that layout points to activity that show, and now we have both. So if you come down here to our resources, go to layouts, you can see we have activity show guess and activity main. Right. So we know the activity main here, the first one. So let's put some things inside here so we can start moving along. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a button. So I'm going to drag and drop. Put a button right there in the middle. Okay, if I want, I can make sure that it's centered everywhere. Put those constraints. So I'm going to double click. So the text is going to say guess the name, like that. You hit enter and voila, we have that. Of course, we can go ahead and extract a few things here. There's different ways to do that. You can go to text and come down here and click there and extract. This is going to be guess the name, say okay, and voila. So we've seen that before, nothing really new here. So guess the name. The next thing we're going to add here is I'm going to add an edit text. So what is an edit text? Well, it's just a field that would allow us to have the users to enter the name. Okay. To do that, I'm going to come up here and I want to just go and get a plain text. Get here a plain text. There's a difference between plain text and text view. The plain text in this case here, it just says it's going to be whatever users want to enter. Okay. So if I drag and drop there, you can see there, I can put that right there. And I want to make sure it's below. Let's see again. So we have our name, edit text. Now I call it edit text. In fact, you can see it gave us this ID, automatically edit text, because they are actually edit text. And they've always been called, I should say, edit text since the beginning of Android. But they changed them to plain text and as you can see, other kind of texts here or fields that allow users to enter email, phone, postcard, and so forth. So that's very helpful. But in this case, we just want a plain one. Very good. So we can make it a little bit longer if you want to do so. So if I double click here, I can change the name there, but the cool thing about edit text, we can also go and add a hint so the users see what exactly they're supposed to do. I can come here and add the hint, right? But I can also be a little bit more smarter here because I know I would have to put everything, of course, inside of our strings. I can just go ahead and say add resource. So I'm going to add new string. So different ways to create our resource strings. So resource name is going to be add guess. Value is going to say enter guess. Okay, click enter. And you can see now the color has changed, so to signify that is indeed a hint, right? So when users click on that, they should get rid of that entered guess, and they will be able to start writing things. In fact, let's go ahead and run this real quick here so we can see how it all looks like. And there we go, enter, guess, and of course all of the other life cycles are still there, but that looks good. So enter, guess, and we have the button here. Now this is not very good, so usually the button should be at the bottom. In fact, I'm going to just click that and get rid of all of that. Let me move that back, and I want to get rid of this connection also so I can move things around. So I want this to go to the top and guess there. Get rid of that as well. Let's see. I'm just rearranging things here, folks, so nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, I want the dependency to be from the bottom to the top. There we go. So that way we can just move everything like this. Okay, so like that. It looks very good. So enter guess, and then they can click guess the name. Very good. So there we go. And now we have our button. Now let's make sure that we actually have good ID. So here I'm going to say button guess. Okay, that's the ID for the button. I'm going to say guess text or guess field, like that. I'm going to say yes to make sure that everything is indeed there. Now we have a problem here. Let's click and see. Layout allows you to place widgets, ID missing constraints. Okay, seems like we need to add some constraints here. Asks us to do so. Let's do that. Let's add it to the right. Oops. Okay, let's make sure. Looks like we're having some issues. Our edit text is acting funny here. Let's see, maybe there's something. Okay, we need to add the constraint layout, but it's not showing here. Sometimes you just have to redo everything. So I deleted the previous one, and then let's add this one now, a new one. So that will help a little bit. There we go. There we go. So whenever things are frozen, just delete that particular item you added and re-add it again. It's not a big deal. So it was just complaining about not having constrained everything. All right, so let's see if this works. Let's go ahead and add the hint all over again because I had to delete it. Let's click here. We should have that hint still there. Enter guess and say okay. There you go. We need to get rid of the actual text because there's different things there. Get rid of this name there. And then we can see the enter guess. Okay, let's make sure that the actual ID is also changed. I think we said guess field. Let's hit enter. We still have the ID button guess. Button is not constrained vertically. Why isn't it constrained? Okay, let's add that constraint. Let's create a top constraint. There we go, much better. So I had that top constraint up to here instead of the bottom here. Was giving some issues there, but no worries. Very good. So we have that. It's working good. It's looking good. At this point here, we have the IDs and we have our edit text there. Very good. So if we save this and give it another run here, we should be able to see something decent. All right. So we have everything looking good, much better right now. We can add things and guess and so forth. So there we go. So we have our first screen looking good. Let's go ahead and work on our second one. In the second activity, we're going to add another text here, text view, because we want to make sure that we received whatever we were getting from the first screen. So I'm going to constrain this as well. We don't get into a lot of trouble here. Make it just a little bit bigger. Maybe in the middle as such. Okay, very good. And I'm going to give an ID here. I'm going to say received text view like that. Okay, not too bad. Get rid of that. I don't need to show text. It's going to be just almost invisible, but it's all going to be populated automatically or dynamically from the first screen. Very good. So we have this very simplistic user interface here. It may have taken a little bit longer than it should have taken because we had that little glitch there, but nevertheless, you should be able to put this together here. So one thing new we learned is to use these edit texts here. So essentially the same thing. They just allow us to get information from the user. So in the next video, we're going to be able to wire everything together here. So when we click on guess the name, we're going to be able to get the information that we have allowed the user to enter and then pass that onto the next screen. All right, folks, I'll see you next.